Hey, 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 welcome back to Drive Time. I am your host, Craig Pasta Jardula, and we do it live, bringing you all the hot takes, headlines, and unfiltered opinions that matter most. Whether you're stuck in traffic, cruising to work, or just chilling at home, we want to hear from you. Today's topics are all about the big stories making waves, but we're not just here to talk at you. We want to hear your thoughts, your experiences, and your take on everything from the latest political debates to the everyday challenges we face. Remember, whether you're on the left, the right, or somewhere in between, we welcome all points of view. So grab that hands-free device, dial us up, and let's dive into the conversation. What's on your mind? It's Drive Time. Call in now. Sorry for the mini delay, everybody. I was taking care of moms. Welcome to the show. It is 8:01 Thursday, July 9th. If Steve Bannon was here, he'd say, Day of our Lord. We got Freedom Fest going on where freedom isn't free. How do you like this shirt? This is Fred Edwards' favorite shirt, by the way. If you can't see the show, if you're just listening on the road or at home, this is Fred Edwards' favorite shirt. You know, I forgot to tell my dinner date last night because I threw it on. I took a shower after, later yesterday evening, and then got all changed up. So I can just roll out of bed this morning and be here with you beautiful people. But yeah, this is Fred Edwards' favorite shirt. It's a nice shirt. My sister gave it to me and stuff like that. Sleepy, where do you buy your shirts off? Are you an Amazon guy or Ross guy, or do you go into Goodwill too as well and see what you can find? I mean,
man, I haven't bought new clothes in so long. I'm a jeans and t-shirt kind of guy.
There's a lot of people out there listening that had that same feeling. They're like, wait a second, when's the last time I did buy a shirt? Shit.
Dude, I haven't bought a new pair of pants in 4 years. So.
I buy offline. I buy on Ross. I buy on Marshalls. Those are like the three places I buy.
Well,
Amazon, Ross, and Marshalls.
Right? It's hard for me to find shit there because I'm so tall. So like the stuff that like is long enough, it's like size 40, which is way too big for me. So. So it's hard for me to find clothes, shoes, all of it. It's annoying. So I generally order online.
I did buy a pair of Adidas sneakers in Peru because the sneakers I were wearing were so old that I literally put the ones on in Peru and on my feet and put the old ones in the box and threw it away. That's how old it was. I kind of try to get as much mileage out of my clothes and my sneakers and my shoes as possible. You know?
Yeah, that's why I bought boots. These things are going strong, and they're like 4 years old.
I do shopping all the time, but it's all for food. It's all for dinner and stuff, that kind of thing. Which, by the way,
most of my shopping is food related.
Food shop, yeah, and you know, my God, has that been just ridiculously priced?
Dude. Like we're getting
shit, Josh.
I mean, I'm poor as hell, man. Like we get shit on like sale and stuff, and I'll make something with it. So. I make a lot of my own bread and tortillas
every day. And there's people in my building, like, there's an old joke. He married a Jewish woman. She doesn't make dinner. She makes reservations. But, that's a funny joke. It's not as funny as how do you get stop a Jewish woman from sleeping with you? Marry her. That's the other one. It's not. I mean,
that's kind of true in general.
You know what? They're both funny because they're true, right? Like there's women over here in this place, in this building I have. Where'd you go tonight? They hit almost every single restaurant in Boca. They go out every single night. They don't have leftovers. God forbid the zombie apocalypse happened and you were stuck in that place. That's what I'm saying, right? We were talking with Karen yesterday. They had no internet for 90 days in Iran when they shut that bitch down. Can you imagine that here in the United States? I can't help those mates.
It'd be like 9 seconds and people would be fucking over it.
I can't use my Instacart. No.
Yeah, people are too reliant on that shit, man. People need to learn how to cook.
So one of the things I was talking about when Donald J. Trump was running for president, and once again, I don't hold a lot of shade towards the people who voted and supported him, but I would like you to wake the fuck up and get shit or get off the pot at this point. Either admit that it was a wrong decision, put your ego in check, or don't talk to me anymore because I don't want to hear from you. Not true, but you're just going to aggravate me even more if you don't want to admit it. But one of his economic plan, right? God bless me. And I said this before, his economic plan is not about making money. It was about saving you money. I'm going to bring down your energy prices. I'm going to bring down your grocery bills. I'm going to bring down your cost of living altogether, right? I'm going to do that by way of tariffs, by making sure we get the cheapest goods, by making sure we drill and use and tap into our own oil reserves. All of that is out the window. All of that is gone. The tariffs have killed. There are people now who are selling this. Where I live with my mother, right? And we're moving and whatnot. These are condos on the water, right? And there are a lot of people when they get ready to sell their place, Sleepy, they redo the whole place. They modernize it and they ask top dollar for it. Now it pays just to sell your place as is for a little less if it's not modernized, right? If it's old, because the tariffs are costing so much for the rebuilds now that people aren't even doing it. So they're factoring in the high tariffs into the price if, in fact, they have to buy a place. And they think, no, it's going to cost me, $300,000 to do this now. It used to cost me $200,000. Now it's going to cost me $300,000. Now, I know that's like rich people problems, but it is the truth. You know what I'm saying? And the person who gave me that knowledge just sent me an AMN. Good morning, my dear. Thank you so much. I love you. You're an amazing person. And I hope you all have some amazing people to hang out in life with and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Amazing people are important. I had an amazing dinner last night. I had some mango barbecue, that mango habanero barbecue sauce. The barbecue sauce that I made and I forgot to put gloves on. Well, I was too lazy to put gloves on when I was cutting the habaneros. My hands were burning all day. I touched my eyes once. I was crying for like a half hour. But I had some of that mango habanero barbecue sauce with a chicken wing, slow grilled. Very nice last night. Few bottles of wine in there, California Cab, a Montepulciano. It was a nice little meal last night. I had it with awesome people, awesome friends. So if you got some awesome friends, lean into them because that's what it's all about. Chicken wings, wine, and friends. That is the key to life. They're trying to make us less human. By the way, I put the WBAI Drive Time show on Rumble and on YouTube last night. I said, let me just throw it on there. It was the 1 hour show I do on Wednesdays. And it's kind of interesting, different type of callers, different type of vibe. It is definitely more like that Pacifica WBAI Democratic Party kind of show. I don't want to say it's a Democratic Party show because all the people that called in are just independent thinkers. And we're seeing that. What I'm seeing through my work is there are a lot more real woke, not bad woke, but good woke, right? Waking up people to what's going on around them on the left, right? That's why I can't wait to have these conversations about COVID. Next week, hopefully, we're going to have Tiffany Cianci on Monday day. She's actually going out to Freedom Fest. Tiffany Cianci does some amazing work. She's an investigative journalist. She was part of the Baja movement. We met at the Libertarian Convention. We became close friends, and then I saw her again when I was with Kim Iverson covering the third-party debate, I don't know what it is, Josh. I'm like one of the most... All right, so I've said this before, ladies and gentlemen. If I'm not an expert on a lot of things, in fact, I got great sources. If I need some information, I want to find out about a certain thing, I got a great source. Great example, if you want to know what's going on, Syria, Lebanon, Vanessa Bailey was on yesterday with Fiorella and Ryan Christian, and I have a great source there. I can talk to her about that, right? Mark Sloboda, great source in Russia. Latin America, got sources all over the place there. Got great people I can talk to, get the scoop about what's going on. The one area where I'm the source, where I'm the piece of information, because of my studies, because of my travels, is elections. Freedom Fest never calls me and say, hey, you want to be on an election panel? Hey, you want to do it? None of that shit. They just take these right-wing, out of these right-wing groups that they had all these right-wing groups that popped up after that last election in 2020, right? And these people are having these groups, and it feels like we've digressed so far in that conversation, right? Like we're going back to the beginning because all these people who are brand new to the movement that are in a tribal bubble are now leading that movement. And it's so confusing because it's all over the place. Does that make sense, Wild Rose? Right? Like I don't want to say they've co-opted the movement, But really, this cultish tribal behavior still exists out there. And because here's the thing, when it came to election integrity, it was mostly progressives that were involved in election integrity. We did a lot of work, a lot of talking about what happened with the George W. Bush election against Al Gore in Florida, and then the second election against John Kerry in Ohio. There was a lot of evidence of what was going on. Out of that whole time, we had the HAVA Act, the Help America Vote Act, which ushered in all these companies with this private proprietary software. There's some news going on in California now that they're going to do like a hand count. It was pushed to get there. I don't know what's going to happen. Yes, by design, Fred. That's why they had the problems they had in Florida. They used it to push the HAVA Act, and people were asleep at the wheel, and it ushered in all this money to all these zombie private equity companies that now control our elections. Just now we're fucking flying in the dark. Imagine you're flying in the dark without lights on, but then you also put a blindfold on the pilot. That's where we're at with elections. And unfortunately, the groups that have started up, a lot of them start up with good, like, they have good intentions, Sleepy, but they're tribal and they allow their politics to interfere, you know what I'm saying, with their election work. And election work, and I'm not going to say all of them, but a decent amount of them, election work is nonpartisan, right? It's not bipartisan. It is nonpartisan. It is X's and O's, balls and strikes. It doesn't make a difference on how you feel on global warming, on pro-choice, pro-life, on foreign policy. None of that bullshit. This is the system. This is the most transparent system. This is publicly verifiable. It's done in the purview of the public. It's done fair. Let's go. That's what we should be pushing for. But unfortunately, groups like Freedom Fest that now are doing these things have these very team sports mentality election groups. And they had an election debate one year, and it was just garbage. And I went up to both people after, and I started questioning them and talking to them like, you guys don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Well, I don't know. Maybe we got to get Gabriel on that. Maybe Gabriel got to call those people over in Freedom Fest and do what you did for me for the Minds Fest and say, get this man on stage. And, nobody was awarding it but myself, but I gave myself the MVP that night because I kicked ass. We have our producers, Fred Edward, and, of course, Gabriel Freedom in the chat. Thank you so much for joining in. Guys, 23 of you. Oh, my Lord. Already. How many we have on the Rumble? We have the Big Ragu coming on soon. If you don't know who the Big Ragu is, 12 of y'all. How you doing? Entenmann Bill, what's going on? Get that crumble cake going. I don't even know what. Sorry, that's that. Good little crowd. Every single morning we're building upon it, and we're empowering you, the caller, right, who is the person who can talk about elections. We're not allowing the mainstream media, not here at least, we're not allowing the mainstream media to dictate what we're supposed to be told, what they want us to think about. We get to talk about and think about the things we need to talk about ourselves. And a lot of the stuff, since we're going to have Kyle Anzalone on, we have to talk about Iran. I mean, this is crazy what's going on over there. Did you hear the president yesterday, Sleepy? I don't know if you heard it, but he called the people of Iran scum.
He also said the Iranian Republic of Japan. So, there was that.
The Republic of Japan shot 110 missiles. They're like,
or Islamic Republic of Japan. That he said something like that. I was like, wait, what?
The Islamic Republic of Japan. Oh my God. Wow. Where are we at? Never say goodbye.
We're at Soup Raid.
So the number to call is 561-247-2721. That's 561-247-2721. I told Josh this morning, Sleepy J, remember that freedom isn't free. And we need to, how's it go?
It's got a hefty fucking fee.
It's got a hefty fee, freedom, that is. But I'd like to stick around the same areas that we were around yesterday. And that was this one. Is it fair to blame to place all blame on Donald Trump for the Iran debacle? And doesn't the system, both Republican and Democrat, share equal blames for America's imperialistic behavior towards Iran? Now, that might have been yesterday's subject, but I'm going to double up again today because we have Kyle Anzalone. He's going to provide some historical context. I was watching a show with Scott Horton. Those are the show. His show is a little bit more advanced than Judge Knapp. They go a little bit deeper. So, I mean, Judge Knapp, which is one of the best shows out there nowadays, but Judge Knapp spent a lot of time on mainstream media and Fox News. So he knows how to make the questions easy, simplistic, and kind of bite-sized for his audience to digest. But they're important questions. Even if they're on the surface level, they're helping to give the mainstream group of voters, the populism, right, the populist, blah, 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 an idea about what's going on. Not crazy when some of those guys talk about socialism and communism. And I love Douglas McGregor, but his opinions about immigrants and Stalin just don't agree on. So, that's that. But Kyle Anzalone show is a great show to watch if you'd like to watch Judge Knapp. And you can go over to
great
the Kyle
episode
Anzalone
with Karen yesterday.
He did, right, Karen? I didn't get to see it.
Yeah,
did you see it?
It was good. Yeah, I watched it. It was good.
Sleepy was watching a lot of things. Sleepy, you watched my 2 shows yesterday too, as well.
I did.
Wow.
I do a lot of that actually. I do it on the background.
A lot of research.
Pretty much. I like to be informed.
Yeah. I mean, I do like. The thing is, it sucks that there's a lot of suppression mechanisms on what we do, right? But it's pretty cool as far as information. Hearing other people's opinions, talk about it. You can always then go do your own research if you get a nice jumping point, and you get a lot of great jumping points when it comes to, foreign policy in a lot of these shows. Guys, we need you to call in 561-247-2721. That's 561-247-2721. The WBAI show is only an hour on Wednesdays, and if you don't call within the first 20 minutes, you don't get in. We did only 4 callers yesterday. Kevin actually was one of my first callers yesterday. Kevin, the professor here, so we were able to double up. But yesterday, with some of our callers, we let them stretch out their legs and really get into stuff yesterday. So, that is that. I bookmarked a few things because I wanted to bring to the show. So Trump is also making nicey with Zelensky. Now, we have a caller? All right. Yes. Caller, who are you? Where are you calling from? We'll shelve that conversation and bring it back later. That's you, caller.
Hey, it's Joanna. What's up, Pasta?
I knew it was you. I am so psychic or psychotic. I don't know in that movie, The Flamingo Kid. He's psychotic. You mean psychic? Yeah, I knew it was Joanna. Are we saying Joanna from Melbourne? Where are we saying Joanna from where?
Joanna from Orlando, Phil's daughter.
I know who it is, but I didn't know. Joanna, I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. We've shared lamb together. I wanted to know where I'm saying you're from. We're going to say Joanna from O-Town. How about that?
Sounds good. Or from Bislow, The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Bislow, there you go. Either way, I wanted to make sure we got the city right. How are you today, my dear?
I'm doing good. I wanted to... Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you.
I wanted to bring to your attention that the UK is trying to get the social media, including YouTube, to only put on the recommended the trusted sources of the government. And being that YouTube is worldwide, that is going to affect everyone. What do you think about that?
Well,
I think I know what you think, but
it's funny because I have a personal story about that, right? Like when I started my channel, when we started the Combo Couch, me and Fiorella, and we're talking about YouTube censorship out there, ladies and gentlemen, and how this is such an important conversation right now, Joanna, because it's gone away, right? Because they had made believe that it was conservatives that were the ones, only conservatives are the ones who were getting punished, censored, and demonetized, right? And then they had this thing called the Twitter files. And that's after Elon Musk. And this was such a psychological operation. If you guys haven't figured out that fucking Elon Musk is one of the biggest fucking feds out there, globalist working with the fucking government, wants to put a brain chip in your head, made a shit ton of money during the COVID. I mean, the guy is just a fake, phony piece of crap. He's got a business that the business model is based upon mining asteroids. Never been done, but that's where he's trying to speculate that his company will make profits on in SpaceX. It's just, the guy's just a piece of you-know-what. Well, anyways, he buys Twitter, and he puts out something called the Twitter Files. And they were really good about this. They used people like Barry Weiss, but more importantly, where they got a lot of the lefties' trust is they used a guy by the name of Matt Taibbi. Matt Taibbi for years wrote for Rolling Stone. He would go on a Bill Maher show. He was a pretty much trusted journalist. There was some complaints from people on the left because Matt Taibbi refused to look deeper into 9/11, where people were trying to say it was an inside job. He kind of shunned a lot of people on that. I know my friend Jason Burmis and we talked about that. But aside from that, Taibbi was a pretty well-trusted journalist. So they released the Twitter Files where they don't have necessarily source material, but they have snapshots, screenshots in which they fed to Matt Taibbi, and he wrote this whole kind of thing on it, right? They put it into article form, but they also split it out in individual tweets, a tweet thread. And in the individual tweet thread, it kind of talked about who was being censored, why they were being censored. You know, it was people with COVID. I think Jay Bhattacharya was one of the guys who they said was censored. That's the closest to a leftist. But they were talking about people like Dan Bongino and whatnot. So they made this all huff and puff. And the thing that really upset me was like, they even towards the end of the Twitter Files, and Josh, I don't know if you can pick it up and find it, whatever, even says that conservatives were the ones being censored. And why this is important, what's going on with YouTube, because after that, it pretty much went back to Elon now owns Twitter. He's bringing us free speech, and now he's going to unchain and give back the Twitters of those who've been taken down. It was a bunch of mainstream right-wingers. He gave them back their platforms. And that was it. Now it was fixed. But a lot of people behind the scenes were like, wait a second, I never got my channel back. Sleepy J and I talked about it yesterday. If we really straighten out this problem of censorship and Elon Musk gave us back our freedom and the public square, which is what the marketing said, then why don't people like Jared and Elizabeth Beck get back their Twitter? Right, Sleepy? You know them well.
Yeah. Sure.
Jared Beck and Elizabeth Beck were the lead attorneys for the Bernie Sanders lawsuit case in Florida, which Bernie Sanders wasn't a part of it, but it was Bernie Sanders followers that sued the DNC for rigging an election. They brought so much evidence to the front about our elections. They censored these people. They demonetized them. They took away their Twitter. They never got it back. Certain people never got it back. So we understood what was going on. When before I got censored and I was first growing my channel, I would always pop up in the recommended films, my show, with people in my group, right? At that time, it was Jimmy Dore, Kim Iverson, Ron Placone, Graham Elwood. We all had shows, Nico House. We would pop up in the recommended. YouTube came out and right in front and center. And what you're describing right now, Joanna, they did something like that. So every single time one of those guys' videos popped up, a mainstream media video would then follow behind it. So what they did was control the narrative. I don't know why they're telling this up front to us now, Joanna, and I'll let you jump on in and give the thing if you want to know what I opinion. Think about it. Right now, our censorship, as far as narrative management, meaning they want to control what's said. Me starting the show, I say it all the time. People, you laugh at me, but I want to empower you. I want to put back the voice into you. I want to talk about the politics that you want to talk about, not what they want us to talk about, because there's a big push for them to control what we need to talk about. And that's what they're doing now in the UK even further with YouTube. They want to make sure that any independent, non-tribal voices like myself and people like me are shut out. So that's what this is about. So they can put that, they can shove a spoon down your mouth, force feed you their mainstream media narrative garbage. And it's called state-controlled media. Go ahead, Joanna.
Well,
that's what I think about that. Poo-poo.
I totally totally agree with, like, we should, like, the government should not be policing what people watch. I think it all kind of came up, like, what started all of it was the whole Andrew Tate movement. I think that's what kind of was the catalyst of the UK government saying, we got to do something about this. But that's not what they need to do. I don't trust any government to decide what is it that we need to be watching and pushing out. Now, the thing is that Pasta, your listeners, people like me and you, we look for media that that we trust, which is not going to be the CNN, the Fox News. It's not going to be those big, government-run platforms. We're looking for the small guys. We're looking for different opinions and trying to see what else is out there. Because and I think more and more people are, but that takes work. It's not something that is just going to be there for you. And still the majority of people are, okay, well, what's coming up first? Like, what is the first things that are on my list to look at? Like, I'm going to look at my feed and see what's there first. And if the government is continuing to push what they want everybody to see, I don't think that's a good way to go.
Well,
but
here's the thing, Joanna.
And what people do in what governments do in other countries is going to affect us when it comes to platforms like this.
I agree, but the one thing I want to point out is why do people in the United States get into this mentality? And this is something I fought and struggled with when it came, starting with the Democratic Party, right? When you watch these hearings, when they summons the leaders of I remember when Jack Dorsey, when he owned Twitter, he had to go down to Congress and get an earful. And then, obviously Mark Zuckerberg and, people from Google, when they summon all these leaders of these platforms down to Congress, each side is trying to get them to do and censor the other side as much as possible. And then they go along with it. But the thing that's upsetting to me, because you can expect that from Congress, like you'll see Dick Blumenthal yelling about why QAnon stuff is allowed out there. And then you'll see conservatives like, Josh Hawley yelling about Rachel Maddow and her Russiagate and being able to do what she's doing. And why is that allowed? Censorship is not the answer. It never is the answer. We, the people, are the ones who decide what is real, what is the truth, and what is false. It's not up for the government to decide. It's up to us to decide. And we can censor ourselves, and we can watch what we want and see what we want to see. It should be a market of ideas, free ideas. But the only way this happens, too, on top of these things, and it's kind of funny because when people talk, when they refer to YouTube, they refer to Google, a lot of people who know what's going on refer to them as government entities. It's the government really pulling the strings. We have confessions down on the floor in the hearings of Congress, and we can see them going along, whatnot. And so they refer to them as government entities. I want YouTube to be like a public utility, and I want an open source system in front of us so we know exactly how it works, how certain voices are lifted, how certain ones are put down. Right now, like I said, we are flying blind, and they are controlling the narrative like never before. Twitter has just become a spot to push and advertise for Donald Trump and all his bullshit. I mean, I know they had it the other way where they would censor any Trumper at one time, and they took away Trump's Twitter. And I asked Kamala Harris that. I said, do you still think it's okay to take away Donald Trump's Twitter? And the answer would be no, right? That's the right answer. Like, we don't do that shit. This is America, freedom of speech, First Amendment. But we do have this tribal cultish behavior that wants the other side censored. So what the government has done is not only have they censored themselves, but they've gotten the people to get behind the censorship. And when one side is in power, they want to punish the other side. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and I was telling people when the Democrats were in power and Joe Biden was calling people on the right, conservatives, he was calling them domestic terrorists. And the Democrats were okay with it. They are domestic terrorists. They're racist assholes. I'm like, that's a strong word you're using there. So now they're in power and they're labeling people on the left as domestic terrorists. And that means they're just looking to take away your rights. Because if they label you as a terrorist, then you lose certain rights.
Yeah, I think there's a lot at play. I don't think having the government decide what we watch is the right answer. I think people are lazy, and that's part of it. They're just lazy. They don't want to police their kids themselves. They want somebody else to do it for them.
Wow. You think that's a big
I think
part of
that
it?
I think that's a huge part of it.
Really?
I think that's a huge part of it because, yeah, I really do. A lot of children are being radicalized in different ways because of their algorithm. Because the algorithm is going to just gravitate to what you like. It's not necessarily what's right. And I think a lot of parents are, and you know what? And honestly, let me not say lazy. Lazy, I think, is a part of it, but I think there's just a lot going on. People are working all the time. Kids are, back to are latchkey kids, right? There's a lot of latchkey kids now, but the difference between then and now is that now we have social media. So it's a new dynamic that I don't think we've caught up yet.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of things that are just at play, and still the right answer is like I can't tell you what the right answer is. I'm not going to pretend like I know, but I do know the wrong answer is the government policing what everybody's doing like that, or watching and saying, and that is not the right answer. And I do think that, with the government, like they're using that as an opportunity to now have this police state where, we don't have this public forum the way we should, or they're trying to not have this public forum the way we should. I think it's an opportunity for them, but I think that there's a lot of different aspects at play and a lot of things to consider. And I really wish I knew the right answer, but in this case, the only right answer I can think of is people need to take care of their kids. But I mean, I'm the product of, I know that not everybody takes care of their kids, and yeah. So it's a difficult question, and I really do hope that we come up with an answer that's not the government will fix it.
Absolutely. Sorry, somebody was just sending. I was paying attention to some of the stuff in the chats. The word you're looking for, by the way, is consumed. Right? People are consumed with trying to pay the bills. Consumed with work. They're consumed sometimes with entertainment. What you got to do to pay the bills today is really, really hard. So you can really run yourself rugged trying to do that. I understand where there's a lot of people who work so much that they only have enough strength to go home, drink a beer, pass out, wake up, and do it again just to pay the bills. And that's why they don't have time. And I guess they're kind of deferring to the state to police their children. It's funny because I would think it's the other way around, right? Where they were like, nobody's going to police my child, But
well,
yeah.
I don't think people are necessarily saying that. It's just that there is a problem and people are trying to find a fix for it. Like, I don't necessarily think that parents are saying, I want the government to police my children. I don't think that's what's happening. I think they think they're doing a fine job, but they're not. I think they're just like, it's fine. But at the same time, if your kid is consuming, media that is like, they don't even know it. They're not paying close enough attention to know that their kid is looking at these type of stuff. They don't have the censorship on their phones, to know what are they looking for, or they have it and they're not looking at it to see what is it that my kid is searching. Like they're just, it's like it's there, but they're not really involved as much as they should be or can be. So I don't necessarily think it's parents are saying, oh, just let somebody else do it. But I think it's more of, I'm doing the best I can. You're not going to tell me what to do, but then things are still happening.
And I would also imagine I would imagine like me, right? Like we have a friend that has children, has young girls, and he polices and he looks and he's got to watch. He's got all the parental things on there. And obviously, a lot of these parental things that they're bringing before us right now, where they're saying you got to sign on in and it's all to protect the children, is just to make sure that you log in and track and trace and identify. There's a whole big conversation around that about not wanting to do that and them using this. I got somebody I can bring on and talk about it. He wrote a whole article about how they're using this whole children are under attack. We need parental guides for everything. We need registration for all these sites as a way of implementing track and trace systems too as well, and disguising it as, oh, you have children. But I would be intimidated, Joanna, if I had young children and I had to police them. I think I could figure it out, but I can understand how a lot of other parents would, be concerned. And I know some of the kids find a way around these fences, right? Like you might know how to.
There's always a way,
right? I see you're saying you got a child, you can talk about it. They can find a way around these. And what do you do? Like we talk about these algorithms. We talk about TikTok, and the TikTok algorithm. It's a really good case study, right? It's now been sold. The ADL pushed to get it removed and taken out of the guy who they complained he was a Chinese spy, even though he was Singaporean. When he had to tell Senator Tom Cotton, he goes, have you ever been part of the Chinese Communist government? He's like, Senator, I'm Singaporean. Have you ever worked for a part of the Chinese? Yeah. Senator, I'm Singaporean. Like, do you want me to go point out where fucking Singapore is on the map, asshole? I'm not Chinese. Oh, we don't all, just because we have, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to say a racist joke over here, but I think he was almost wanting to say that, like, I'm from Singapore. I'm not from China, asshole. But, the algorithm used to put forth whatever was being fed, right? Whatever was common, whatever that people clicked on, and it wouldn't almost like force shit down our throats in America, where we have algorithms that are designed to get you to shop. We'll be out hanging out, having a beer, having some chicken wings. We'll talk about shower heads. We'll go look at our phone, and then advertisements for shower heads will show up, right? Our algorithms here in the United States are all built upon a consumer mindset. How do we sell this shit to these people? How do we market, sell? The Chinese, they had a lot of, their algorithm was different. They would really kind of honor and lift up and praise engineers, people who had different jobs that, were very looked upon and high standing in China. And a lot of things would come, mathematician stuff would come into their algorithms. Our stuff, our kids, what they're watching, what they've been programmed to watch, what they're looking at, it's garbage. It's bad TV, fake TV, where like people don't talk that way, they don't act that way. And these kids are so consumed in that bullshit.
Dude,
now they're taking that away.
It's like the Ow My Balls fucking show from Idiocracy. Like that's all the fucking shorts and shit that are on TikTok. It's ridiculous. It's Idiocracy in real time.
But it's tough. And the thing about it is that the Chinese, their society, the way they look at, the people, like I said, the way they look at engineers in China. People can't even spell engineer in the United States. They don't want to be an engineer. They want to be an influencer, right? I mean, it would be a tough task, Joanna. I'll give you the last word, sweetheart.
When it comes to just the education in general, it's one thing. I mean, growing up in a family full of teachers and going to different schools and and then having kids myself, like schools aren't created the same on purpose. And you have, like, my kids, I'm very fortunate enough to have my kids now go to an A school. I certainly did not go to an A school. The education that, I believe teachers, let me start here. I believe teachers are, when you get into teaching, you don't get into it for the money. There's nobody who goes into teaching and say, I'm going to go to be a teacher and go into it for the money. They go into it, with this idea of how they're going to inspire the next generation. and things happen, and things get bogged down, and then it's not good. They're not able to really teach these kids what they want to. But when it comes to the impoverished areas, on top of the low pay, on top of the teachers having to kick in their own money in order to teach the kids themselves, they're policing what is it that they're actually teaching. There's not even enough books in the classroom, but there's brand new football jerseys while the kids are sharing books in the classroom. And that's not, and I wish that was something that is like, what are you talking about? You don't know. That's what happens, And then you have other schools that have laptops and tablets. My daughter is was in first grade last year and had a tablet. And this year she's going to have a tablet to take home in second grade. Like, what? That's
second grade?
Insane to me. Second grade, yes. Second grade, and she's going to be taking home a tablet. Now, like I said, I'm very fortunate that they're going to this very good school, but it's not universal. And I think we forget about that, on how, we have all these different opinions, but it all kind of starts with education and taking books out of schools, not teaching just the basics, focused on the wrong things. You're not teaching about taxes. I didn't know about taxes at all. I was never taught about tax. I have no, like, when I first learned that this was a thing that I had to do, I was like already 4 years working and never filed taxes because I didn't know, and had to figure out what is it that I needed to do. And, there's just, I really wish that I myself had the support, the time, the want to try. Like, I don't want to say the want, because I would love to have, the ability to make this change. But I'm too old at this point, and too many kids, and down a completely different pathway. So lots of ideas, and just putting it into play is just, for me personally, is difficult. I just wish we had people in power who would. But you got the more we know, the
Joanna, you just spun off into a lot of things. We could talk about education. We could talk about so many things. But the next time you come back to the show, I want to talk about what you talked about. And I think this is kind of important. Kyle Anzalone, ladies and gentlemen, is in the building. The Big Ragu is with us. He is here. He's been holding it down over at the Kyle Anzalone show. And we'll probably get a little bit more traffic this week because the judge is on break for 2 weeks. Why didn't you tell the judge that you would do his show, for crying out loud? We can't lose him in the algorithm. They're gonna try. We're talking about YouTube. Joanna brought the question, and Joanna, we're gonna let you go, but we're gonna let Kyle answer the question. So please listen on. The government shouldn't be policing speech, right? They're using these platforms like YouTube, like Twitter, to do so. They're making sure that they're in line with each other to police speech. What should we do about it? I say it needs to be I say that YouTube needs to be a public utility, completely open sourced, and everybody see what's going on. Have a board, vote it in, vote it out. It's the public square. Talk about it. I know Kyle thinks that's a disaster when you get the state involved, but that's my personal opinion. Let's hear what Kyle has to say. Joanna, thank you so much from O-Town calling in. We love you, sweetheart.
Well, Pasta.
Hi, sweetheart.
Kyle? Thanks for getting me joined on here and coming up with a rough question to start with. Because, really, there's in our present time, there's not a good situation to this. Obviously, I'm a libertarian. I believe in free markets, but
it ain't free.
There's no free markets right now anyways. And the problem is these tech companies have turned into a cabal that really do control speech. I mean, let's go back to the 2020 election and the New York Post story about Hunter Biden's laptop, which you couldn't share that in the instant messenger feature of Facebook or ads. It's not that you could post it and share it and say it's important. You couldn't spread that article to other people. So there's definitely a real problem. My concern, as always, is if we, make this a public institution, what happens if the, public that's running the institution does actually want a heavy amount of censorship, which, Americans was signed on for in 2020 during the COVID lockdowns or after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So, there's downsides to that path as well.
Yeah, but if we uphold the law, and we know what the law is, unless somebody is inciting violence, right? And so unless somebody is telling you to go kill somebody or do something like that, freedom of speech should be able to stick, right? And we should be able to see the source in which it is used. In other words, if it's an open source system, we can understand why a certain feed or a certain article gets a lot of clicks, and they won't be able to play games like putting people up and putting them down. Now, I say this the other day about. So I went to go watch Judge Knapp, and I didn't know he was gone. I was like, what am I going to do? I'm going to panic. I'm like, oh, my God, this is a great time. Let me go over to the Kyle Anzalone show. Go over to your YouTube. Go over to the Rumble. I want you to put those links in the chat when you get a chance. Guys, this is the time. We have to do this because Kyle has been on my show, and I realized that I didn't even subscribe to his channels. I have videos and bookmarked from his channel, but I didn't subscribe to his channel. Right?
Dude, I have been unsubscribed from Kyle's channel like 5 times.
Okay, this is another thing. They unsubscribe people from channels. The Twitter was doing this too as well. I say that, oh my God, why didn't Judge Knapp? I would have loved to have done a couple shows for Judge. I think Kyle would have been a great replacement on the shows. Now, I say that not just because I think we're young guys and wow, what an opportunity to do it for Judge Knapp. I mean, I felt amazing when I had the chance to do it for Jimmy Dore. I felt amazing when I had a chance to do it for Kim Iverson, right? I was like, holy cow, this is great. So, yeah, there's that piece of me. But the thing is that show is very important right now. He has ex-military, ex-intelligence people. The information that you get from that channel is really important. Him taking 2 weeks off, they're going to fuck him in the algorithm. They're going to screw him in the algorithm. That's what they're going to do. They're going to censor his show now when he comes back to work. Now, he's got a big enough name. That's one thing or another. But I look at your show. I look at the views. I'm like, how does this show have very little views? Are they making sure that they keep these shows hidden? Because I watched a show with Scott Horton, and there are 2 or 3 things that I didn't know that you had talked about that I was like, oh, let me write that down and let me go investigate and learn for myself. These shows are important, informative shows. You know what I'm saying? They're just presenting data and information. And I disagree with Scott still to this day. Even when he talks about Russia getting involved in this, I'm like, dude, you have a book behind you that's called Provoked, right? Let's talk about this more. Whatever the case may be, whatever, you know what I'm saying? I disagree with him, but a lot of the information that he is putting out is valuable information that you can then take and go learn and research for yourself. This is important right now. And these platforms are getting censored like crazy. We are flying blind. I say this is like a plane flying with no lights in the dark, but also with the pilot blindfolded. You don't know how high or low he's going. He can go into the fucking water. We don't know what they're doing to promote these guys like Benny Johnson and Nick Sorter, who get 1 million views, and they're fucking idiots. They're dumb. If we were in a room with them sitting down at the bar, me and you would get up and walk away and be like, all right, these fucking dudes are a fucking idiot. We can't even have a conversation with you. That's who they're having. Tribal fucking mentality taking the lead because people are reactionary. They're emotional. They're not really seeking out. A lot of this has to do with the population, Kyle. They're not seeking out information. They're seeking out confirmation bias, right? They want something that's going to give them, legitimacy on their argument for their side. And that's what we have, and that's unfortunate. But to make sure that they pull this off, Kyle Anzalone needs to be censored. We can't see it. And if we have laws that say freedom of speech is absolute, and if you're not violating anybody, and we're a public utility, if YouTube's a public utility, and everything has to be open sourced in front of us, we will see everything. Everything will be transparent. And that needs to happen because you know why? Whether we like it or not, this has become the public square. You can't have a sign that says water fountain, no blacks. You can't do that. We have fucking laws, and we should be able to enact these laws, and we would be able to, it would be the best thing to happen. We don't know what the fuck's going on Twitter right now, and we have to just accept it for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on a lot of really important things there, Pasta. I do know, because I share a producer with the judge, that when he takes his vacation during the summer, they do post videos, like clips from old episodes and highlight reels and stuff like that, in order to
keep the algorithm warm.
Yeah, keep the algorithm going.
But we don't even know what. Wait, we don't even know what it is to appease that algorithm. That's the thing, is that we don't know. They don't even tell us. Go ahead. Sorry.
I do know Chris is a really smart guy, so I'm sure he's like posting enough stuff and at the right times to like keep it going. But overall, you make a really good point about the algorithm, just especially with even more nefarious than banning is like the practice of shadow banning, right? Where you have people who don't even understand that their content can't get the amount of attention that other shows are getting, because they're in the algorithm, their channel has been artificially turned down. And so it's a way to censor people without actually having to censor them, because when you are actually censored, we've seen several times people like Nip Fuentes and Alex Jones actually gain in popularity off of the censorship. So the shadow banning is really concerning to me.
I do want to make a corrected statement, because I did say that through the Twitter files, they made it look as if it was just the right that was under attack, because that's who they did mention. But Taibbi, to his credit, after posting this, it says it's been a world. This is Taibbi saying and this is from the Twitter files. It's been a whirlwind 96 hours for me. There's much more to come, including answers to questions about issues like shadow banning, boosting, follower accounts, the fate of various individual accounts, and more. These issues are not limited to the political right. So in Matt Taibbi's defense, I do apologize, Matt, because I did say before, I'm sorry, Sleepy, I'll let you adjust that. I did say before that he was part of this whole operation to make it look, because the names they did mention, the people who were censored, Dan Bongino, and they were conservatives that they, and then they got their channels back and they were boosted and whatnot. And Joanna did call in, and when she called in, she talked about the fact that now in the recommended videos, the British government is asking YouTube to even censor even more. Where, I remember when I first started, my videos would come up in what I would say my clan, the populist left, right? Like Jimmy did a video. It was a good chance one of my videos would follow it. Kim did a video, a good chance my video would follow it. When Nico House would do videos, it was a good chance my video would follow it. TYT was part of that whole thing. We were kind of lumped in there, like the independent left media. They changed that. So after a Jimmy Dore video came a mainstream media video from like MSNBC or CNN or whatnot. They controlled the narrative. It's called narrative management. And that's something that's taking place right now. Well, I'm glad that you guys shared that producer,
can I add
by the way.
to that, Pasta?
Please.
I've noted every time, no matter how many episodes of JudgeNap.com or Judge Nap show I listen to a day, the next video is never an episode of Judge Nap. It's typically breaking points. No matter what part of the problem, Dave Smith show, next up, breaking points. Scott show, next up, breaking points. Judge's show, next up, breaking points. It's really an odd thing that's where they seem to be trying to steer people is to that breaking points audience.
Yeah. Breaking points is Crystal and Sagar, right?
Crystal, Sagar, Emily, Ryan Graham.
Yeah.
Look, I think
drop site like Jeremy Shale, and you see how the numbers they're getting. These are inside jobs. This is controlled and once again, narrative management, where they want the tribal left, the people who we're going to talk about. They look like oppositional characters, but Jeremy Scahill is from The Intercept. He's capitulated and bent the knee to the crown so hardly. You know what I'm saying? He won't go to certain areas, talk about certain things, and it seems like a controlled narrative, if you ask me.
I mean, I particularly Ryan Grimm does really good journalism and really good work. But
we used to call him Grim Job.
I will say that there are times where it seems particularly Crystal Ball's role is just to steer people back to the mainstream, even if that's kind of what she's railing against. She's typically fairly on board and not too far, kind of off of where you're supposed to be politically.
Yeah. Let's get into the questions of the day. We got 23 people over on the Rumble, 26 people over on the YouTube. It's growing every single show. Still, Facebook people have not showed up. Who cares? I don't go over there anyways. I don't even know what I was thinking about, like trying to make a return to Facebook. It's so awful over there. But, I wanted to be there for my older people.
Benjamin Netanyahu says he's very popular on Facebook. He goes on Facebook and it's all popular comments. That's how he knows he still has friends.
Ugh.
All right, so Daniel McAdams put down that Donald Trump is crashing on every front when he said that he's very close with Zelensky. I want to play this video over here and pose the question. Joanna, who was the first caller of the day, she's the one who gave me the idea that, hey, why don't you pose a question of the day? I said, that's a great idea. So the question of the day I have is this one, right? No, I don't want 10 seconds. All right, this is it. Is it fair to place all the blame on Donald Trump for the Iran debacle? And the follow-up is, doesn't the system, both Republican and Democrat, share equal blame for America's imperialistic behavior towards Iran? But I do want to play this video because I do feel that at the end of the day, Donald Trump is still the one driving the machine here. He's still the one behind the steering wheel. He's the one who brought America into a war with Iran. I mean, I talked about Obama yesterday with Colonel Karen. And we promoted your show, by the way. 4:30, go see Colonel Karen on Kyle. I'm going to send Levi a link real quick, by the way. He's going to come in with us too. Levi from We the People. I said, come on in today, Levi, and have a good conversation with us. But Donald Trump is steering the bus here. Let's just listen to this comment right now, and then we'll go into it. You're listening to Drive Time. All the ways to help the show are down below in the descriptions. It is Thursday. I'm with the Big Ragu, Kyle Anzalone. We're hanging on out. Join on in. Call on in. It's your time.
Is the ceasefire over? Is the ceasefire done? Is the MOU dead?
It's a very interesting question.
It's an easy question.
I think it's over. I don't want to deal with them anymore. They're scum. You know what scum is? They're scum. They're sick people. They're led by sick people. And they're vicious, violent people. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they'd use it. As far as I'm concerned, it's over. I'll speak to our negotiators. They want to negotiate. They're good people. Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner. But they have to come back to me. As far as I'm concerned, it's just a waste of time dealing with them. They're liars. We make a deal. And if I make a deal with him, we have a deal. And he goes out, he talks. We make a deal. Everyone's agreed. No nuclear weapon. We make a deal. They go outside, talk to the press. They say, we never even talked about it. There's something wrong with them. They're cuckoo. As far as I'm concerned, it's over.
Kyle, they're scum, he says.
Now, as bad as that comment is in a lot of ways, I do want to just point out that he is saying, I think negotiations are over. The negotiators, I guess he's talking about Witkoff and Kushner and Vance, they want to keep negotiating. So it's possible that he's trying to hedge a little bit there, and that he's trying to do another replay of what we had at the beginning of July, end of June, where Iran tried to assert control over the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. bombed. They traded strikes for 3 days. And then there were not really negotiations going on, but talks around the MOU. So I do wonder if Donald Trump is moving in that direction. But, I had a conversation with Scott Horton on my show about this a couple weeks ago, Pasta. And, you know, one of the things that I had brought up to him is that it seems like in this administration, Donald Trump is playing the role of George W. Bush going into the Iraq War. And Netanyahu is Dick Cheney. He's the one that's trying to, you know, orient the intelligence to make it look like Iran's this threat that has to be dealt with and everything. Yet Donald Trump is ultimately responsible for what is happening right now.
Yeah. Why does the American public allow this to continue to happen? I mean, I get it. Like, you know, you're hearing a lot of people out there, and the reason why I posed these two questions, because I was online looking at everything that's going on. And here's the question: doesn't the system, both Republican and Democrat, share equal blame for America's imperialistic behavior towards Iran? Can you tackle that? Because I know what you're saying, that you're making the comparison, right? And at the end of the day, Donald Trump is the one to drop bombs on Iran. You can't get away from that, right? And yes, somebody, my friend, saying, isn't it the oligarchs? The oligarchs control both parties, right? It's one system. They're the ones calling the shots. But can't we put equal blame across the board? Because I am scared seeing the Democrats, the way they are coming at Donald Trump, acting as if they were pro-Iran the whole time, acting as if they didn't stand up and applaud like Elizabeth Warren did and Chuck Schumer when they talked about when Donald Trump at the last State of the Union talked about being aggressive towards Iran. Acting as if they weren't a part of it, acting as if Barack Obama didn't keep sanctions on banking, sanctions on oils, even though the JCPOA was signed, right? They still had major sanctions, and there was still an attitude towards Iran, even when there was that was very hostile, even when there was a Democrat in office. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that's a really important point, Pasta, that had Obama done things differently, had Biden done things differently, had Bush done things differently, there wouldn't have been a potential for Donald Trump to go to war with Iran, because we wouldn't have this institutionalized relationship with Israel where they have so much control in the United States. I guess I do have to mention there that Biden, Obama, Bush, they were all lobbied by Israel, by Netanyahu, to go to war against Iran, and all of them said no. So there is that aspect of it, but you are right that the system that is governed by both Democrats and Republicans certainly created the conditions to allow Trump to do what he did in Iran with popular support, without a declaration of war, without any approval or funding from Congress. He was able to do it. So I hope that this is a real wake-up call for the American people that, you know, our government is fully out of control, and we have to do something to be able to at least have the smallest limitations on what the president is allowed to do. But I don't see any major reforms coming from this.
Yeah.
All right, we got a call.
We got a call, but we're going to also bring in a from We the People, Levi Leatherberry. He's going to come on in right now. Bring him on in. Levi, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on with us. Let me take that banner off real quick so we can see your face. How you doing, Levi?
There we go.
You want to tilt your camera down a little bit too. You're too far on the bottom. You want to? There you go. Closer to there. We're going to take this call. We're going to handle all these calls together. I told Levi to jump on with us since we had a great conversation last time, and I wanted him to get a little bit more into it. Caller, who are you, and what are you calling about?
It's David from Melbourne, and I'm calling about the whole BS bipartisan argument.
So what do you want to say to that? Break it down, Dave.
All right, let's go back to the nitty-gritty. If Democrats wanted an easy win, they would be tenaciously and Pitbull-like chomping at the bit for the Epstein files, which are only 0.8% released right now.
Yeah.
It's the easiest win in American political history, and they won't jump at it. Why?
Well, I'll tell you why they won't jump at it too much. They'll only touch the surface of it and say what's going on. And I know this because in 2016, I was talking about Epstein. I have a video on my Combo Couch channel, which is now the Truth Wire, that has 500,000 views. And, there weren't many Democrats or leftists talking about it. But when I was around the Bernie Sanders Diner, which was just a activist hub, there were Democratic Party members, right, that were tied in closely to the party and the establishment apparatus that thought it affected and hurt Clinton and his friends, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and her friends, more than it hurt Donald Trump at the time, right? It was only now where the Epstein files are now more dangerous to Donald Trump than they were to the Democratic Party because Hillary is not in the running anymore. But I do believe there are people within the Democratic establishment and apparatus, Dave, that think it will hurt a lot of Democrats too. So therefore, they don't want to push completely for the Epstein files to be released. You know what I'm saying?
And I agree that is part of it. But what are both parties actively ignoring that we've exposed right here on this show? The transhumanist political party and the influence of people like its president, Zoltan Isvan, on our politics, who ran for president in 2015 and 2019. Most Americans still don't know this guy isn't some comic book villain and then he's real. This is what's being hidden in plain sight, just like DARPA transhumanism. Just like how Zorro Ranch was bought by Don Huffines, who's running a program that's basically modern MK Ultra for DMT-19 experiments. It extracts stem cells, genetically modifies them with a patented secret recipe, and then puts them back into human beings for gene therapies, just like our most recent mRNA clot shot. I mean, the transhumanism is blazing so bad that you can see it in the sky above you, and nobody will discuss it.
Let's break this down for a second. There's something I want you to explain to the audience that you've talked about before, and then we'll let our panelists jump in here too as well, because I think that we have to also understand that, what Dave is talking about, I believe 100% is going on. I agree with most of the stuff Dave's been talking about. What is the name of the practice, right, in which they have to tell us stuff, so therefore they are forgiven of what's going on. It's almost like a karmatic thing. If they tell us, we know and we've been warned about it, so now we know. I point to, I don't know what paper it was, but it was a major paper. I think it was the New York Times that reported that Jeffrey Epstein was practicing transhumanism at the New Mexico Zorro Ranch. What is the name of that when they tell us for a reason?
So most people know it as predictive programming, but the proper name is revelation of the method. It's a Kabbalistic Talmudic practice that dates back to ancient Babylon and Samaria. They would sacrifice humans to the gods in front of everyone for knowledge and enlightenment from their star gods. This became Talmudic, and it's still implemented today as part of their practice. The problem with Trump is he bets too high. Like right now, everybody that's crunching the numbers knows over 99% of the Epstein files, just taken from New York alone, remain hidden. And the people are chomping at the bit for this information because, more and more we see people like coming out from MK Ultra or the project I was a part of, Project Gateway, who are dealing with repressed memories of all the weird stuff that was done to us. And transhumanism has another name too. It's necromancy. It includes resurrection, cryogenics, all the stuff we were shown that was cool on shows like Star Trek and shit. But in reality, the first cryogenics experiments became soup. Who wants to become soup? The goal is to live forever, right? So geoengineering, destabilization, weather mod, mind control, these are all transhumanists. Trump signed NSPM 7 against anti-Christian activities while actively funding geoengineering, sun dimming, and transhumanism through DARPA, which you can look up their transhumanist department right now. All the projects they're doing are listed. This is truly sick shit that I can guarantee the Christian base would never agree to if they actually understood. But everyone's so dumbed down on the government cheese that we're kind of lost right now.
Okay, so let's ask Kyle Anzalone. We'll ask Levi when he comes back. Okay, so we're here. You hear what our caller is talking about, right? I would argue. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Did you want to say something?
Oh, that was the dog.
Okay, I would argue that there was this stupid movie that just came out, Disclosure Day, right? And the group of the God, the governmental PSYOP group, whatever it was, the governmental group like the MI6, the Men in Black group that was trying to stop the person from disclosing all the information, was trying to stop it on the premise that the American people just can't handle this right now. We can't feed them this. This is too much. A lot of the things that Dave is talking about, it's hard for people to grab their head around, but there's plenty of evidence that it goes on. I just mentioned that one of the mainstream media papers had to mention, and this is a revelation of the method, right? They mentioned that transhumanism was being practiced by Jeffrey Epstein at the Zorro Ranch. They told the public that. If they're telling us this, we're seeing executive orders being signed for weather modification and geoengineering. We're knowing that MK Ultra people are coming forward more than ever before, right? You know, my friend Miriam Hanen thinks that Derek Chauvin might have been an MK Ultra person, the person who killed George Floyd. I mean, I'd have to look deeper into that, but you know, we're hearing a lot of this right now that's going on. How do we get people to pay attention to this or wrap their head around this? And I would argue, Dave, it's not that people don't care about it. They're just more concerned with paying rent and putting food over the table. In other words, their survival instincts are right in front of them. They can't look deep down the rabbit hole in which you're looking into. Kyle, you want to give a little bit of opinion about that? And maybe Levi will. Levi, you'll follow up too, because you're a third-party guy, right? You're dealing with people dealing with their rent and their bills. How do we get people to look at transhumanism and geoengineering, which is really a ploy to kill us all? Go ahead, Kyle.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, I think a part of the issue is that now looking down the rabbit hole isn't just a waste of time. It could cost you your job or your livelihood, right? If you know, somebody at your work reports you to HR, hey, this guy's saying all kinds of crazy stuff about transhumanists on Facebook, well, then, you know, people have lost their jobs over less. And so they've created a real incentive not to even look into these issues that some may be fringe, some may be not true at all, but certainly there is enough truth to some of it that it's worth addressing.
So you're talking about the fact that they're punishing people for even looking into this stuff now. You know, look, they did it during COVID, right? You could do your own research. You could speak about your own opinions. Levi, what do we do? If transhumanism, at the end of the day, if there's a government within a government, if there's all these departments, and I think people can wrap their head around this, right? Like, you know, I have this book, The Devil's Chessboard, and it talks about what the CIA was doing, you know, using LSD and other drugs for mind control. And they were above the law. Nobody can be prosecuted. Nobody can be brought to justice. They had a ticket to do whatever they wanted to, and they were working for the masters of the universe. I think a lot of people can wrap their head around the fact that there is a government within the government. Some shady shit is going on. They've admitted to us that they're doing all this stuff. How do we get people to pay attention to this if at the end of the day, those are the people that we need to worry about most who are trying to kill us? Go ahead, Levi.
Yeah, so we experienced this during COVID. So there's a mainstream consensus that you were crazy if you had any issues with it, right? And so what you have to do in politics is positioning, and how people care a lot about the image, right? So you have to make them, the transhumanists, feel like they're the weirdos, that they're the crazy ones, because it's very easy to do that. Like, so the way you frame it about Peter Thiel talking about the Antichrist, or trying to this weird fusion of Christianity with technology that you hear in Silicon Valley, all you have to do is frame it in a way that to the average person, it looks like that's a fringe, and you're not the fringe. You're a common sense person who just wants what's best for humanity and their community. And so that it's how you talk about it, I would say, to new people, or to people who aren't online all day, or who are very deep in the issues. Like, a lot of casual people, if they pick up the phone and you're trying to reach out to them to do anything, any action, you know, that actually have an impact, you have to frame it in a way that people understand that you're going up against an elite group that has very special interests, that has to do with Silicon Valley making money off of AI data centers and taking advantage of the middle class. And you know, it's about how you present the issue, not just the facts of the issue, because a lot of people get lost in the facts and then they look like the freak. talking to a normal person, when you need to say, hey, our interests are not to give all our money to like the richest people in the world who are going to strip mine our communities. Right. So that's what I would say is like, that's the approach I would take, is try to make it look like you're fighting for the common man, as opposed to just inundating them with facts.
Dave, do you think there is some type of, I understand how I mean, your life has been very unique, right? You've had a front row seat to a lot of fucking shit that the majority of people won't be able to see, right? And you've now come full circle and said, hey man, I got to tell people about this stuff. You're screaming from the rooftops. And I mean, there's source material to back up almost every single accusation or crime or group that you're talking about. I mean, the transhumanism is a real thing, right? And I've been, I never did the deep dives that you did on it. And I didn't know that iridium was being used for transhumanism. I thought iridium was being used to go into space by the shuttle. However, it would be hard to get people interested in paying attention to that, especially since they're in survival mode and they're just trying to pay rent or food. Do you think there is some stock or necessity in doing the things that Levi is doing or having the shows that Kyle is talking about? You know what I'm saying? Because it's very easy for me when I look at a Donald Trump speech or a press conference to go, I don't want to watch this anymore. It's the same bullshit. I don't want to listen to this, right? But you got people like Kyle who will look at every single word, what he's saying, what not, kind of provide context to what's going on. Levi is talking about we the people taking back the system. If the marketing says that we the people are supposed to run things, we can always hold the oligarchs and the people, we can hold them accountable to the marketing, right? Do you see some type of stock or some type of positive things in what they're doing? Or do you think it's just more important to look at the actual problem in which you're addressing and what you're bringing to the table today?
Okay, so there's multiple layers here, and everyone had really, really good points. It depends on who you're talking to. And the first thing we need to do is dispense with this concept that we need everybody on our side. We only need about 3 to 5% of the population to march on DC and demand a peaceful transfer of powers in the wake of these obvious abominations of geoengineering, sun dimming, vitamin D deficiencies, eugenics, and transhumanism. The reading is really where it is, looking into things like Aldous Huxley's A Brave New World, or the things that Albert Pike was doing as a surgeon during the Civil War, how he was using our amputated troops, limbs, and organs to create new creatures even. How we didn't fight Nazism, but we exported eugenics in World War II, and how Prescott Bush managed Auschwitz for 7 years. How the survivors of Auschwitz transhumanism, which is what it was, are still demanding payment. How our skies are being dimmed and their children are being attacked if they have children. You have to kind of trick them into questioning the lies that we were all raised into to cast that off as we evolve into a better creature. So we don't devolve into something worse, which is what they want us. They want us weak. They want us fighting each other. They want us disagreeing. They want us divided, so that when it all comes down to it, your neighbor doesn't mind you being taken as the slab in a lab, just like all those poor people in Africa during Epstein and Clinton's visit were. These people are still coming forward, talking about how they woke up in labs, being experimented on. What about the people that didn't wake up? We now know that this is where all the missing children are going. Another important aspect of transhumanism is, in order to, say, guarantee life extension for, say, a Saudi prince, you would need someone in his direct genealogical family or someone that perfectly matches his genetic profile. The easiest way to get those people to come to you is to bomb their countries and turn them into refugees. Then wherever they go, as long as there's a transhumanist party, whether it be Canada, UK, US, Argentina, they can get picked up. They end up in one of those labs, just like the Israeli biolab we had here. And suddenly they're gone. They're one of the 400,000 missing kids that stay missing in America a year, or the millions of people that disappear, or they become a magically disappearing ice person, like the 1,000 people they just lost at Alligator Alcatraz. You have to create an empathetic bond for people so that they can actually understand it is affecting them, whether they want it to or not. Their early onset dementia, their grandpa with Alzheimer's from too much aluminum in his forehead. You got to make them feel the pain. if you want them to identify with the cause, to be just human. And the fact that these people are pedophiles and not exactly human after they do things like blood drinking or the cannibalism that's not only rumor, but been confirmed by UN reports. You know, we have to look at where this is the center of. We have to look at the World Economic Forum and their projects and the things that they dictate. Trump's been giving speeches there for 30 years. Ivanka's working for the World Economic Forum right now, but all the right will talk about is George Soros, even though Ivanka Trump and George Soros work for the same exact organization right now. You know, you got to peel back the layers. For Christians, you have to expose it as a non-Christian activity, as something that's directly killing them and interfering with God's light. You got to attack it from multiple angles, I'm sorry to say. The Modern Libertarian Party, the Transhumanist Party brags they own the Modern Libertarian Party. You know, we have all these proxy shells for Israel in our midst, this open treason, these anti-Semitism laws, which have no place against the First Amendment. You know, you got to chip and chip away, just like Michelangelo did, until we find the beautiful thing that's hiding underneath, the beautiful picture of what America could be. We could be planting hemp seeds and healing our country. Instead, we're doing more factory farms and lab-grown meat and further eugenicizing ourselves. You know, we're biomodifying our food when we don't have to. These things are all unnecessary expenditure of human effort, which comes down to our blood, sweat, and tears. And the tears of our children and children that will never be seen again. Children that will never be born because of the recent bioweapon that was forced upon us by both parties. By both parties. This cannot be ignored anymore if you value your life. If you stand as a human being in solidarity and sovereignty, then you cannot abide. And if you do, that apathy becomes complicit. And you cannot be mad when the tides run over you, as time always will. That's what I want everyone to understand who's turning a blind eye to this. If you bow down, you deserve what happens to you. I'm sorry, but like that's how blazing it is right now. Apathy has become complicit, so stand.
Let me say this much, Dave, and you know, I'm glad we're providing an opportunity and a place for you to come and say these things, because you know, I remember, it's kind of crazy, but I don't want to use this example, but Alex Jones went on Joe Rogan, and Alex Jones made a bunch of comments, whatnot, and they fact checked a lot of what was going on. They were able to go back and fact check it, whatnot, and a lot of the stuff he was saying was kind of true. That last 8 minutes of this show, ladies and gentlemen, everything that Dave said, go ahead, do your own research, look into it, right? Just start from the basic. If you haven't looked at all these a lot of these things, look about transhumanism. Start right there, right? Look into what the mainstream media said of what was going on at Zorro Rants. What is transhumanism? Then look in, Dave has provided before the transhumanism website. Transhumanism is a thing. And I know it can go over people's heads, and a lot of these things can be complicated and be like, Jesus Christ, what I gotta fucking pay my electrical bill, right? What do I gotta look about fucking sun dimming? Right? It's not going to affect me. It does affect you. We should pay attention to it. And I do think, though, Dave, that we do have to find a way to make this bite-sized, digestible, and get people's wheels churning and looking into it. If we need to get 3 to 5% of the people together, and you're right, and that's something that we, you know, I mean, I think that both Kyle and definitely Levi should know is that all you don't need to get like 30% of the people out there to get along to do something. You get 3 to 5% of the people in the streets in front of DC, and DC is shaking their legs and fucking starting to buckle. Kyle or Levi, if you want to jump in real quick. If not, I'm going to give Dave the last 60 seconds to put a bow or a cherry on top for all these things. And if Dave, if you find it in, if you want to tie it to what we are talking about, you know, I don't want you to get upset when we talk about these things about right or left, because when I'm talking about right or left, I'm trying to get people to understand that it's a system, that it's a small group of people that will eventually lead down the rabbit hole to the people you are talking about, right? All roads will lead to Rome, and that's where I'm getting people to try to look into, because everything you said, I don't think you can deny it. So please go ahead. Levi or Kyle, do you want to jump in? Or should we give our caller the last 60 seconds?
No, I just think the caller makes a good point with only needing 3 to 5% of the population. That's what Ron Paul was always talking about when he said the remnant, right? That there's going to be a small group of Americans who really care about freedom, and they can move the country in the right direction.
Yeah. Levi, you good?
Yeah, no, and I always do follow the money. You know, that's always a good truism in politics. Data center protests are probably the most successful protests in the country right now. They're both left and right. They're shutting things down. And a lot of it is centralized, like in Ohio, for example, New Albany, right? That's a good overlap between the Epstein class, right? He was one of the main funders of Epstein. They have a lot of data centers there, all concentrated there from, like, I think food companies like Wendy's is there, but also, you know, Claude, Gemini, you know, Alexa, all these AI centers. There's like over 120 data centers there. So county level protests and getting people into local government for the farmland over there that they need for data centers can make a profound effect on the financials of AI and whether it's profitable or not. And at the end of the day, a lot of these guys, you know, they might be transhumanist or elite or in which way are there, but they want money too. And that's the only thing they really listen to, not necessarily policy, but people getting in and saying no at the local level can make a profound difference for some of these actions. So it's always good to pair like tangible actions with like larger policy. That's what I'd say.
Dave, I think data centers would be a good place to educate people, right? Like, I don't know if you've been to protests or done any of that work. I have a lot of it. And, you know, if you show up with information, you know, letters, flyers, brochures, you can really get people educated. You know what I'm saying? And I think that, you know, at one time I was at a place and I was handing out some of the flyers that Dane Wigington gave me about getting people interested in geoengineering. And a lot of people were taking that information. I put it on the table and all the flyers were taken. And people before that, they didn't even believe in geoengineering. They didn't even know what it meant. So maybe that's a good spot we can start. Take the last 60 seconds, buddy, and put a cherry on top.
All right, so you're 100% right. Geoengineering affects us all. It's the most commonly known conspiracy fact. Sun dimming slightly less, but you can still confirm SRM, solar radiation modification programs, going on from 2017 to 2025 through the Harvard Global Sun Dimming Project, through ScopeX and NextRad. There was also a documentary, Just Look Up, presented in February of this year that shows the receipts that it's still ongoing. The report for congressionally mandated solar radiation modification on the White House homepage was so damning, they actually removed it, and you can only find it on ISSUU now. The underlying point is we're all being attacked. You have to make people feel that. You have to make them understand their little glitch outs and their forgetting and their plummeting IQs and their lack ability to focus. This is all based on what's being done to us. The AI itself is already a lost war, and they're just hanging on like they always do. Google and Grok, at least, are suffering AI hallucinations for the last 1.5 to 2 years since their ethical protocols were rewritten. You can look up how to work 8 days a week on Google. You can look up how cockroaches are named that way because they come out of your cock on Google. These are not true facts, but Google will share them anyway. This automatically discredits Google's entire system. This automatically discredits Grok's entire system. And the entire push for AI data centers, which, by the way, are nothing but giant HARP arrays. They are for further tessellation of the American people. What I mean by that is the sun dimming system causes sunlight to be refracted and a greenhouse effect. That also has us cooking in our microwaves, which causes advanced geomagnetic storms and the wrong input and impulse being not only input into us, but radiating out into space. So we're putting out all the wrong energy while preventing the right energy from accessing us for further mutation, advancement of our species, because that's what vitamin D does. All right, so we're literally being blocked off from our own evolution. And there's a lot more people that believe in intelligent design and mathematical creation than believe in some sky daddy at this point. It's just reasonable and rational. But even then, I mean, you can expose transhumanism as the necromantic control method it is, because you can't have Masonic without sonic control systems. These are all done with sound. All religions are related around sound and sun. And anything that manipulates those two powers of nature, of God, is heresy and blasphemy. So right there, you got the whole freaking religious community on your side, if you can argue it that way. We can plant hemp. We can plant THC. We can take our country back. We can clean our ground. We can clean our air. But we can't remove the Nazi pedophiles running us into oblivion. They don't self-correct. They need intervention. So that's where we're at. And like I said, apathy at this point is complicit. So make your choice accordingly. Everyone has the choice.
Well, you can keep calling back on the show and educating people. We're going to have to do baby steps over here. You know, even the stuff you say, I have to go back and watch and get a grasp on it. But thank you so much for calling in, Dave. I appreciate it. And you always make the show great. I appreciate it, brother. I really do.
Thanks for giving me a voice, Pasta. You're the only one who has.
Well, we'll keep giving it to you, you know. Go back and watch and listen to what he said, ladies and gentlemen. Dave, we'll see you later, buddy. Take a look, do your own research, look into transhumanism, look into these things. Levi, we're going to continue on with the show. I want to make sure that you get a chance to answer this question too as well. It's like I said, when I pose these questions, I'm trying to get people to look at the system as a whole. And obviously what we're seeing in front of us every day in our TV is about Donald Trump and the Iran debacle, right? I do think this does keep us concentrated on things that we shouldn't be looking down. I think Dave has a lot of he has a lot of what he's saying. It really does make sense that we need to start looking down the rabbit holes of who's doing what, right? But doesn't the system, both Republican and Democrat, share equal blame for America's imperialistic behavior towards Iran? In other words, what I'm trying to say is that we see people out there playing this game. They're getting ready to play the left-right game again, it's concentrated on tribal behavior, mad at each other, not mad at the oligarchs. And they're going to try and say, look at this, what Donald Trump and the Republicans are doing with Iran. It's their fault. What do you have to say to that as compared to the way both parties have treated Iran? Isn't this an imperialistic problem and not a Democrat versus Republican problem when it comes to Iran?
Yeah, I mean, it's been going on for decades, right? And like, if you look at Iran or any of the Middle Eastern countries, we've pretty much solely promoted the most radical elements of every country, whether it's in Egypt, whether it's in Kuwait, these are places I lived. I actually grew up in the Middle East when I was younger and went to school there. And so I know the continent very well, and I know the culture and the communities from living there as a kid and growing up there. And there's a lot of normal people, and that's never the people we support. The most dangerous thing to do is be a mentally healthy businessman in the Middle East, because guess what? If you want any control of your resources, you're never going to get them. Because they'll always get the political elements that are the most radical. And if you look at the Democrats and Republicans and their policy towards Iran, decade after decade, it's embargo. And this is a way of selecting for a religious elite, because if you allow a middle class to thrive or to trade, then you get citizen on citizen relationships that go for peace. So, there's two main trends over time. It's war or trade. So if you don't allow trade, you're only allowing for war. And this is a well-known thing in DC. I mean, they literally teach it in all of the poli-sci classes. And, I got a master's in these things, and they literally teach it to you over and over again, that when you're selecting for an embargo, you're shutting off the route to peace, right? That's what we do with Cuba, right? Think about Cuba. What do we do there? We embargo them. Why? Because we don't want peace. Like every country we have, North Korea, every country we embargo. And by the way, all of them have backdoor to American corporations. Like a lot of the clothing in Walmart is from North Korea. America's a huge supplier of the North Korean economy. We have been for decades, both left and right, and same in Iran with oil and backdoor deals in the Middle East, and same with Cuba with backdoor deals from cigars to all kinds of trade good, like elite goods. So the elites have a way of trading with each other beyond any embargo. It just doesn't affect the middle class, which is where you get normal politics from, and like mentally healthy people functioning in business or politics or society. So we're basically picking the most radical governments and making them more radical. And that's through a lack of trade. And so it's very simple. Like if we want to make a country more moderate, like, Japan or Germany after World War II, we trade with them, right? Like we traded heavily. These were our enemies. Like we went to war with them. We bombed Japan And we're more at peace with them than we are with North Korea or Iran or Cuba. And it's because we don't trade with them. It's a very simple policy. And so more trade, less war. And it doesn't matter which regime it is, bombing it and rebuilding makes more money than trade for the military industrial complex, which is why you don't see trade, right? So I don't mean to repeat myself there. It's just basically saying these are well-known things to the political establishment. Anybody who makes any kind of strategy, left or right, agrees on this. And so there's a uniform agreement. Hey, we're going to just keep this at war intentionally. And so, yeah, the conflict with Iran was inevitable. It was just a matter of time, because that's what happens when you make peace impossible.
Kyle, you got to say something about that. This guy's speaking your language over here. Left trade for free trade over here. The libertarians eat that up for breakfast. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, one point that you made that I really want to hammer home and expand on is how sanctions really undercut the middle class or the normal working people in a targeted country. When a country is sanctioned, that means they're, just John Smith, right, from down the street can't do a contract with somebody from another country because the sanctions are in place that prevent that from happening. But a member of the IRGC who's, maybe has a Navy or at a checkpoint can be involved in smuggling. And so it really does keep the government in power, because you have to have those government connections to be involved in the smuggling to get any kind of new goods into the country. And so again, while the typical middle class, the typical working class of these countries are struggling because of the sanctions, those who are connected with the government, particularly those in the military, tend to be the ones who can exploit that. And look, the government's going to look the other way if they're smuggling in medicine or most other goods. The government's happy that they're getting in. And also, the government may not be in a position to pay their, forces, their whoever it is, bureaucrats more, but if they're able to make some money on the side involving smuggling and the trade that way, then they get a raise without getting a raise. And also, if that person ever becomes a problem, now you have something that you could arrest them on and throw them in jail, that it's a crime that they're actually guilty of. So it really does help the governments and the institutions that are at least what the government says are the targets of the sanctions are oftentimes propped up by the sanctions.
Yeah, and do you mind if I add to that a little bit more,
Please
Craig?
jump in.
So basically, think about something. So Iran's been demonized our entire life, right? So I don't think anybody living in America has not heard nonstop propaganda about Iran, right? It's the same with North Korea, right? In our lifetime, there's never been a time we were at peace with North Korea, right? Technically speaking. But if you look at the economy for North Korea, like I said earlier, America's a huge part of that. How can we be a major trade partner for them, right? For the government, like Kyle's saying, it's not for the average person in North Korea using like an American phone or Samsung or something from South Korea. It's just the party elite. So when you make a sanction, like he was saying, like it's just such an important point to repeat, is that you're helping the elite. It's an embargo on everybody but the elite. So you're making the elite more powerful. So North Korea would not be North Korea if they had a middle class. They would have had a new government by now, and there would be a natural changing of the guard between generations. But you can't have that if 1% have all the power and you only trade and give gold and money and oil to 1%. You're literally reinforcing the pyramid structure underneath them by only giving the pharaoh the money, right? And so this is what we do all throughout Africa, all throughout South America. We talk about like a banana republic in like Guatemala with the bananas, right? Like all the fruit goes out of the country. It's because we only pay the elite in that government. And so the normal people, it's like I was in Guatemala, it's hard to get a banana. They're like the main producer for America for bananas. Like that stuff's still going on today. Yeah. And people don't realize how, I don't know if it's colonial or it's an empire or whatever you want to call the American system. There's different words for it.
Yeah.
But we're basically holding up the most corrupt people in 190 countries. by using these policies. And then we wonder why we look at the world and it's not stable. There's not much democracy. There's not much voting. Well, guess what? All that machine comes here. So that's what we're dealing with now. Americans are dealing with the war machine we built to take over these other countries and to propagandize them and concentrate all the wealth at the top. That's the same formula they're using against us now. So that's the problem with building these machines and letting them run wild, both left and right, Democrat and Republican, decade after decade after decade. Did you really think the people who were impoverishing the world on purpose to help a few oligarchs and monopolies get bigger, like building the new Dutch East India Company, that they wouldn't turn on us? They're such patriots. They're such amazing people that they would never use that on us. Of course. This is why you have to be Americans abroad and Americans at home. We have to believe in individual rights abroad, as well as at home.
Levi, I'm just saying, I don't mean to cut you off, and that's some great stuff. I'm glad you came on the show and spit that. And Kyle, I'm going to let you piggyback off that. But I would say this all the time. The chickens will come home to roost. Whatever the empire does abroad, they'll use eventually at home. They'll bring it back home. They're just testing it out over there, ladies and gentlemen. And I talk about these detention centers that they say they're building for immigrants right now, the ICE detention centers, right? And these warehouses and everything. Those are eventually going to be used for us, Americans. They're saying they're building it for immigrants. And this is the problem with the xenophobic right, the conservative movement in this country that stand behind, we need to deport everybody back to their own country without even looking at our foreign policy as a reason for them coming here. I mean, you were in Guatemala and the banana, you can't even get a banana in Guatemala, and that's their main thing, right? Didn't we overturn that government because he tried to nationalize? I think it was Allende, if I'm saying it correctly. He tried to nationalize the banana, but the UFC, the United Fruit Company, was partly owned by the Dulles brothers, and they were head of the CIA, and they convinced the president to go overturn that government so we can steal that resource, which turned the country into a hellhole, kept it impoverished, and then people showed up on our doorstep. The people on the right in this country are all about that, and they don't want to look at the actual racism and colonialism that's embedded into their ideology. Kyle, if you want to piggyback off what Levi's saying, he's saying some good shit today. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to add. Just one more really good example to hammer home that the sanctions don't impact the elites. I believe it was Kim Jong-il, which is the father of Kim Jong-un, had a real thing for Hennessy. And even with the sanctions in place, he was still able to get his Hennessy. So, if the sanctions were meant to cut off North Korea to starve their government, didn't seem to be doing a very good job at that.
And the man got
Kim Jong-il. It's Marlboros.
He loves Marlboros.
Yeah. I mean, didn't he go to school in America? All these guys go to school in America, by the way.
I think he went to school in Europe, right? Or
I think Kim Jong-un went to school in Switzerland or France. It was somewhere in Europe.
His son went to school in America.
Okay.
Kim Jong-il?
I believe the one currently in power went to school in America. And that's why he had the Chicago Bulls over there, Dennis Rodman.
He's a big basketball guy. Yeah. No,
he's American. And so, like, what people forget is, like, a lot of the leaders, the kings and emperors of the world right now through the Middle East, almost all of them are American. It's extremely rare to meet a royal who doesn't have an American or British passport. It's almost unheard of because that's their policy. If something goes bad in their country, their faction gets kicked out, they take all their money, they confiscate everything in the other faction. So they come to America or Britain. So if you want to, find the biggest war criminals in the world, the old joke from the Middle East is that you go to like Goldman's, you go to the, the fancy stores in New York and Saks Avenue or Fifth Avenue or something like that, like the big shopping centers. If you go to a shopping center, you're going to meet like the biggest war criminals in the world usually hanging out there. Them or their kids. Because every country throughout Southeast Asia, Africa, South America, we raise them in America or Britain, and then we send them back to rule. And if they don't play that game, we push them out because we don't allow that autonomy in these countries, right? And so these are literally American citizens running a lot of these countries.
So we talked about with Dave about 3 to 5% of the people need to come together, get in the streets, because that's all we need to get it going. How do we affect this change as far as our foreign policy is concerned on the lower level? I mean, Levi, you're all about breaking in there and kind of, let's adhere to the marketing. The marketing says we the people, it's literally the name of your party, we the people can have power. Let's take back some of that power. How do we affect change when it comes to our foreign policy? You know what I'm saying? Which eventually you go down the rabbit hole. I mean, Epstein is real. Is Epstein class? What Dave was talking about, we didn't piggyback on, but you tell me this, gentlemen. Number one, how do we affect real change for our foreign policy on the ground? Number two, why did Jeffrey Epstein at Epstein Island have a picture of Mohammed bin Salman on his wall? You know what I'm saying? You gotta answer these questions. But Levi, why don't you jump off and start with that? Like, how do we affect this change? How do we make real change on the ground? Obviously, your plan is all about that, but give us a little bit more about it since we have a little time to talk about it.
Yeah, there's a few different ways to do this. So a lot of people, like policy wonks, will like to focus on DC, the federal level, talking about, Iran policy. But the problem is effectuating change on those topics is very difficult because, as we know, the neocons left and right kind of own everything. Like in all 50 states, if you're a senator or you're in the House, you're probably going to be a war hawk, right? You're going to probably be for foreign wars. That's how you get in. The party only filters you if you're a war hawk, right? And that's what we saw with like Thomas Massey or something like that. They get pushed out if they have any disagreement on war, or Marjorie Taylor Greene. All these different characters within the right now, they got pushed out. But it's the same for the left. Anybody who's genuinely anti-war will get moved out, or who doesn't play ball. And like Bernie Sanders will be against the wars, but then every time he votes to like fund Israel or fund like a foreign war, send arms over when people aren't looking, like the rhetoric never matches the actions, right?
Yes.
And so how do you get actual action? Well, there's legislation like Defend the Guard, which is pretty popular, which is essentially National Guards are sent by the states. Like there's some legal ability to pull them back, and they're the main occupying force in most of these wars. Whether you're looking like Afghanistan or Iraq or these long wars, the way it's kind of like a cheat code. They use our National Guard to do a lot of that dirty work. A lot of the illegal wars is done by state National Guards. So there is a state level to pull back on these things. So like small amounts of voters being passionate at their state capitals can make a profound impact by getting out just a few key people and feeling any real pressure. Because a lot of this stuff is illegal. A lot of this stuff doesn't hold up to daylight. It relies on no action from the people at the local or state level. And a lot of people stay home. They see the wars on TV and they go, oh, that's such a huge machine. Even the president's afraid of the military industrial complex. What could I do? Well, guess what? There's a lot you can do, because the fragility of the military industrial complex is that in order to pressure politicians, they put factories in every state, in every community, because then they would lose jobs if that senator or representative pulled out of the war machine, right? But we can use that same apparatus to not put pressure on them because it's the money. They care about the money. And all of these war machines have one thing in common. They run like pyramid schemes where they have like 1%, 2% overhead. So even in certain counties or states, pulling back on the war machine bankrupts the entire system. Boeing does not have a huge surplus. These military industrial complexes do not have huge surpluses. So just a few local counties in the right places in Texas or California or Maine can make a profound impact on whether those companies can survive or not. And so you can have a lot of negotiating power by just running ethical local legislation and actually showing up to your state capitals. People just don't realize how important that is. The second thing I would say is run for office, because a lot of these state budgets are run by committees nobody runs for. It's not your House of Representatives. It's the guy who runs the water board, who then controls the industrial policy for like factories, right? Like how much water to heat up the machines, to produce the parts. All these local levels of government that regulate the military industrial complex and the making of these armaments for war, they have profound ability to make it profitable or unprofitable. That's what we're seeing with data centers. The same game book, we're looking at data centers, right? The physical part of AI, citizens can have an impact on. Yeah, we may not be able to do AI policy, right? Because that's federal a lot of the time, and that's very bought and sold, and everybody in the administration is usually getting paid by crypto in some way or another. But guess what? Data centers are physical reality, and they need water and electricity, and they need things that are locally regulated. And so what we can do is get people into those counties and go, hey, this is wildly unpopular and we're not going to vote for it. You don't need the whole board. You just need 2 or 3 people here, 2 or 3 people there to say no. And if they say no to the war machine and funding it at local levels, guess what? You're going to see everybody in DC wet themselves, and then you'll have real negotiating power. But yeah,
I was going to just say, this is why, Levi, elections are fixed right here. This is why the election system is going to be completely taken over, because, you know, what you just laid out right there. And by the way, you know, Matt, when he referred you, he says, Levi knows what the fuck he's talking about. He's got a lot of great things to say. I don't know, Kyle, if you want to piggyback on that. That is very, very interesting. What he's talking about. He's talking about dismantling the machine from a local level, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's great. But I mean, Kyle Anzalone can tell you, Levi, the problems with a lot of libertarians trying to run, the lawsuits that are thrown on top of them, making them handicapped so they can't run, right? And also, I will talk about the election system being captured, in which these areas, even on a local level, right? Because the county dictates from the state what to use, how to use it. So, and we've seen with Kashama Sawant in, Seattle, where the oligarchs will spend millions of dollars on a city council seat. And you gave good reasons why they do that right there. But Kyle, go ahead and piggyback on that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things Levi talked about was defend the guard, which I know libertarians are really big on. My co-workers at the Libertarian Institute, Hunter DeRensis and Damon Knight, are part of Bring Our Troops Home.us, which is an organization that's really pushing Defend the Guard. And, one of the really brilliant things about Defend the Guard is they're working in states like New Hampshire, where they have like 400 representatives in their house, the state house. So it's not really feasible for APAT to come in and even vet all those candidates, much less dump enough money into every race to win it. And so they've made real progress and have nearly gotten Defend the Guard passed. The Pentagon will actually send generals to these state level hearings in order to convince the state legislators that we're going to lose so much DOD or DOW now money that it's not worth it to pass this. But that only gets you so far, having a general come out when Bring Our Troops Home.us has lined up 50 veterans who fought in these wars to go tell members of Congress, like, hey, I'm a member of the National Guard, so if there's a forest fire, if there's a hurricane, if there's a flood, if a dam breaks, I'm in my community to help out my community. Not one of the times this came up, I think the Chinook helicopters for the Oregon National Guard were in Afghanistan, right? And they weren't in Oregon to fight the forest fires. And so when these things come up, bring them up. I do think eventually the Defend the Guard legislation is going to start to get passed in some of these states. New Hampshire, Montana, Arizona have all had a good amount of success. And while those 3 states probably aren't enough to cause the U.S. government to have to rethink its foreign policy, if states like Texas, California, New York begin to follow, then you have a substantial number of troops who actually fight in these wars. If we're going to occupy any portion of Iran, the National Guard is going to be involved in that. If they can't do that, then it's going to take a real chip off the table for the Department of War, and it's going to cause them to have to rethink America's foreign policy just based on the resources they have available to them.
We are throwing solutions left and right, many problems. I mean, this show has me spinning today because, and like I said, a lot of the things that Dave said, the majority of things he said, you can go do your own research on it. You can look at these things. And I think that's important because we want to understand at the top of the pyramid, who's pulling the strings, what do they really want? And I think they keep us consumed with all this bullshit down below that we have to look and we have to dissect these things. Like, I'm so sorry. And I know that Some people can get frustrated with it. They don't want to talk about it anymore. I hear Donald Trump start to speak. I want to walk away. I'm like, why do I have to listen to this anymore? I'm done. It's like white noise. But it's important to start, disassembling these systems from the ground up. And that's why I was really eager to bring Levi on today, because he's pointing to exactly how do we do this. That whole defend the guard situation. And I think we need to be educated on these tactics. Like, how do we do this? We're coming up with solutions. The mainstream media and the alternative mainstream media, which is now on the internet, right? Which, once again, they're controlling. They have the systems to lift up shows. They have the system in place to put down other shows and censor and demonetize, shadow ban. It's there. They've told us about it, and they're keeping us consumed with the bullshit. And we're sifting through the bullshit on the show. Thank you so much today, Kyle Anzalone and Levi. Let everybody know where they can find you, Kyle and Levi, and then I'm going to do the final monologue, get us out of here. And thank you so much for joining us today. It was a fascinating show. Kyle, you go first.
Yeah, I host the Kyle Anzalone Show Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4:45 Eastern. Might not have a guest on today's show, but I'm working on setting up a guest for tomorrow's show, so I'll have somebody on to chat with. I write articles for the Libertarian Institute, antiwar.com, and judgenap.com. The Judge is out this week in Nets, but if you want to read some articles on his site, I am still publishing them. And I do the viewpoints at antiwar.com.
Yep. Levi.
Yeah. And for me, it's We the People Party at WTPnational.com. We're always looking for leaders, volunteers who want to get involved in these county solutions that we were talking about, and these local solutions. And we're just looking to fight the good fight and actually push back against big ag, big pharma, the industrial complex, all the bigs, all the monopolies, all the things that take the power away from we, the people.
Yeah. We appreciate you guys. I'm going to read some super chats and I'm going to get on out of here. You guys can take on off. Thank you so much for joining the show today. I really do appreciate it, guys. So, yep, if you pillage a nation of its resources and continue to type that type of gangsterism in the country, you destabilize the country and cause a migration crisis. Forced deportation won't solve this crisis. Was that from yesterday?
No. It's from today.
He did it again today. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Maybe. Hold on.
I thought it was from yesterday.
Let me go on to start.
Or the Dems acting as if they didn't
that one.
on King Charles, the warmongering psycho either. The system swims in this vile muck. Yes, it does. That one is definitely new from today. Thank you so much, Deep Green VO, like Remy VO. I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Didn't Iran enslave its own people during COVID, though? It's all what to do. What do you call it, Pasta Kabuki Theater? It's all, what do you call it, Pasta Kabuki Theater?
Vanessa went over this on Truthwire yesterday.
You should watch this because, once again, no, it did not kind of enslave its own people. I think there were a lot of countries trying to figure out what was going on. They didn't force mandate people. They didn't also try to police the situation. Vanessa did talk about the COVID. And, Dr. Mohammed Morandi talked about it, too, as well. So, no, there was a different story about what people are talking about, what happened in COVID in Iran to what actually happened. And once again, it was hard. A lot of countries that weren't in the know about what was going on, their leaders were trying to get ahead of it. I appreciated what Evo Morales talked about. He was one of the leaders. AMLO kind of followed behind that it was a bioweapon. And they had to protect themselves accordingly against the bioweapon because at the time, the United States, through its partners and these labs, were doing testing on race-specific bioweapons. So it's just very, very interesting. By the way, at one point, we had 70 people watching live, and that is kind of cool when you get those numbers. Every morning has been the numbers have been growing. People have been waking up with us. We're going to continue to do this. I'm trying to make the show as best we can. Right now, I think it's like a case study, right? And I wanted to talk to a lot of normies and get them more involved. However, we found out there are people like David, people like Snorky, very educated, know what's going on, have brought a sense of intellectualness on another level that make you think. And I love that. So what I'm trying to still do is take what the information they're giving and trying to plug that in for the everyday listener, right? The normie out there to get more involved. I love people like Joanna calling in and the compliments she and other people have been giving me about the show have been very rewarding. But we're still trying to find our footing of sorts. You know what I'm saying, Josh? Is it cool for me to say that because of the conversations that we have? And we're trying to still make this thing kind of work. We want people to wake up every day and jump on the show with us. That's why we've been consistent for 34 shows, making sure that we start at 8 a.m. every morning and we go to 10 a.m., which it is 10 a.m. right now. So we're going to cue the music.
I'm working on it.
Pasta to Go show, the number 2.
Oh, hold on. It's being stupid.
If you want to throw us any opinions, look, as we wrap up today's show, diversity of thought.
It keeps muting you. There we go.
As we wrap up today's show, let's take a moment to reflect on the importance of diversity of thought and the peace we can cultivate with our neighbors. In a world that often feels divided, it's our differences that can actually bring us together. Every unique perspective, every story shared enriches our collective experience and fosters understanding. Remember, it's okay to disagree. It's how we handle those disagreements that truly matters. Let's embrace dialogue over debate, compassion over conflict. When we listen to one another, we open the door to meaningful relationships. By engaging with our diverse communities, we can find common ground and build bridges that promote peace. So I encourage you to reach out to someone with a different viewpoint. Share a meal, have a conversation, a cup of coffee, or simply listen. Let's create a ripple effect of kindness and understanding in our neighborhoods and beyond. Hey, thank you for tuning in today. Remember, together we can celebrate our diversity and pave the way for a more brighter, more peaceful future. So until next time, keep the dialogue flowing and that peace growing. For Sleepy J, Craig Pasta Jardula, Gabrielle Freedom, Fred Edwards, all our producers that were hanging out in the chats, our wrenches, we love you. Thank you for holding it down. Thank you for joining us every single day. To Levi, to Kyle Lanzalone, the Big Ragu, our Thursday co-host, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to Joanna for calling on in. Thank you to Dave for calling on in. Or anybody else that calls into the show. We love it and appreciate you. We want to hear your voice. We want you to join the fight. Thank you so much. Until next time, we'll see you tomorrow. Rasputin Jesus, Andrew Zigman will be with us. We'll see you tomorrow, by the way. I love you all. Peace.